steps this 7.5, 8-foot tall creature. And after about 5 or 10 seconds, it just turned its complete body and looked at me like, "What are you doing here?" When it took that step, I pulled the hammer back on the rifle that I had.
This is the Cryptid Creatures Podcast. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's going on, buddy?
Brian, we got a good guest on tonight. The guy goes by the name of Old Bear.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting fella.
He is an interesting fellow, and he's got a lot of stories and a lot of things going on. But
sounds like fun.
Yeah, he's going to focus on his main encounter, which is pretty good from what we hear so far. So,
yeah. Well, let's get him on here and just see how good it is.
We will do that. Give a shout out to the listeners. Thanks for listening, everyone. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Right, and if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you had an encounter and be a guest on our show, email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co, or they can go on our Facebook page, click our link, go to our pod page, and check our calendar.
Click the link in our bio.
Right.
And that'll take you to all of our links, and just click on our pod page and
leave a brief description of your encounter and what happened, and we'll get back to you. Sure. So anyway, let's bring on Old Bear and get this show started. Brian, what do you say?
I know, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Old Bear, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it a lot.
Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah. So why don't you give, before we get started with your main encounter and then maybe some other things, why don't you give our listeners a little bit of background about yourself, maybe where you're from, what you're doing here and why we're talking tonight.
Well, I'm from the Charleston, West Virginia area, and I've been chasing these boogers / Bigfoot / Sasquatch for 30 years, pretty much across Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, North Carolina, down into Tennessee, and South Carolina, and for years, for over 30 years, I've been involved with Bigfoot. And it all started back when I was a 16-year-old kid. I saw the first one when I was 16. To me, it was an intense situation, and I didn't know if I was going to make it out of the woods or not at that point.
Gotcha. So you've been doing this for that long, and you've also got your Facebook and your group page and all that stuff. Old Bear's Den of Bigfoot. That's right. That's what it's called. Right. So for the listeners, want to check that out. So why don't you go ahead and get into your first encounter and tell us what happened and what made you dig into this so deep?
Well, at age 16, I was deer hunting on the last day of deer season here in West Virginia. And that happened to be on December 3rd in 1984. And that year, my dad let me go by myself for the first time. And I walked about a mile out of Ridge from where we parked my dad's vehicle, and walked over the hill a couple of benches and sat down near these two or three boulders that were there. And the biggest one was just off to my left, about 20 feet. And I'd been sitting there maybe 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes, and these three does came running out from behind that boulder. I heard them coming, and I saw them, and they stopped kind of off to my right, probably 30 yards from me. Their tongues hanging out, breathing heavily, and they'd been ran hard. And to a hunter, that means that there's a buck in the area and the buck is chasing the does. Mm-hmm. Well, That wasn't what was chasing the does. The buck come out. There was no buck that came out, and I heard some noise that sounded like a buck deer making grunt sounds from behind this boulder, somewhere off behind it where I couldn't see, and I could hear the footfalls. And I was excited, as a teenager, I was going to get my first deer, first male deer. And, I was going to prove myself to my dad. And, I was excited about it. Well, out steps this 7.5, 8-foot tall creature covered in a dark auburn hair, long hair, probably 5, 6 inches long, hanging off the arms, the legs, hair across its chest, not as heavy as what the arms and legs were, and didn't have a neck. It had a chocolate type skin on its hands and on its face. It walked out and was concentrating on where those does went, and after about 5 or 10 seconds, it just turned its complete body and looked at me like, "What are you doing here?" with a surprised look on its face. And after about 10 or 15 seconds, it started curling its lip up, exposing its teeth, growling at me. It took a step towards me. Now, this was at 20 feet. Now it's at about 16, 15 feet. And I'd already raised the rifle that I had to my shoulder. And when it took that step, I pulled the hammer back on the rifle that I had. And it was just a Model 94 Winchester 30-30. And this thing almost instantly went into a surprise look. It stopped growling at me. It shut its mouth, closed its lips back up, and was standing there. And then it started turning its upper body looking for a way to go. And it finally decided to run back towards the boulder it came out from. And I could hear it running. And when it disappeared from sight, and I thought that it was maybe 50, 60 yards still running up the hollow, I got up and turned and started towards the top of the hill. And about the time I hit the top of the hill, this thing screamed at me. It shook me up pretty bad. It shook me. The scream alone made my heart and lungs and stomach and everything else felt like I was bouncing around inside. Like you had a major case of butterflies.
Right.
And I did my best impression of an Olympic speed walker back to where my dad was at. And as soon as I saw my dad, I said, "Dad, we need to go home." And my dad just kind of like, "Well, what's wrong? We ain't been here very long. What's wrong with you?" My dad said I was complete white. He said he thought that I may have seen a ghost or something whenever I first, got back to the truck. And I told him a second time we need to go home. I walked straight to the back of the truck, unloaded my rifle, put it in the case, took my hunting coat or my vest off, and took my hat off, threw them in the back. And I never do that. I usually leave them on until I get home, or close to home. Right. And it was a pretty warm day. So I wasn't dressed heavily, but I broke out into a sweat. And when my dad saw me doing all this, he just came over, unloaded his rifle, got in the truck, started it up, and said, "Tell me what's wrong." In that father's voice. And I just looked at him and I wouldn't say a word. And finally, when we got to the interstate, I broke down and told my dad. He looked at me real funny. He said, "Well, you're talking about them things we saw in that movie, Legend of where was it at?" I said, the legend of Boggy Creek, Dad, and we'd seen it maybe a few months beforehand. And I said, Dad, this thing looked like it, but it looked a whole lot meaner. And he just he said, well, son, you've never lied to me before because you know the consequences. And I said, yeah, I know the consequences. I'm not lying to you, Pop. I said, there's no way I can lie to you about this. And he said, all right, I believe you, but do not tell your mom. Don't tell your grandmother, because if they get wind of it, none of us will be hunting again.
Old Bear, for the listeners and Brian and myself, can you describe the face in detail, what you saw in this creature?
Yes. It had a male, a human type face. It had high cheekbones that were well defined. There was wrinkles that came down the forehead, a lot of wrinkles, more than I got. And around the eyes, it had wrinkles like crow's feet and everything on the sides of the eyes. The nose looked like my nose, but kind of shoved down a little bit wider. Mm-hmm. And the lips were very thin. It didn't have any facial hair. It was it looked like a human being, but like maybe everybody's seen the movie The Planet of the Apes, whether it was the old one or the new one. Right. The gorillas they had on there at the time, it looked like that, but more human features. You know what I mean? With the lips and the nose and the eyes. Mm-hmm. And the eyes were coal black. Mm. There was no pupil, no white or nothing in the eyes.
Did it kind of look Neanderthal?
No, it didn't have the brow ridge. It had a forehead just about like mine, you know. You
said he showed you his teeth. Were they just like human teeth, or were they like?
Yes.
They have canines?
Yeah, they had the same type of canines we do. I mean, you know, it's.
So he didn't have like longer.
No, they didn't stick outside the mouth or nothing.
So you were like, you said 15, 16 feet away. You were pointing your gun at this thing.
Yeah.
Were you going to shoot it?
If it would have took another step, the question of Bigfoot would have been solved in 1984.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So you must have been terrified. You were a teenage boy out there by yourself within 15 feet. And it's how long do you think this lasted? 30 seconds or something like that? Which seemed like probably 30 minutes.
No, about 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So, you got home, or you told your dad. He said, "Don't say anything to anybody else." And did you ever tell your mom about it, or say anything to?
Well, I was married, had children, and I was in my 40s when I said something to my mother.
That's usually about the safest time, yeah.
Yeah, she couldn't ground me or tell me I couldn't do anything anymore.
Exactly.
So. You know, I respected my parents when I was a kid. You know, I grew up, my grandmother lived with us because, you know, my grandfather he had passed away, and that was my dad's mom. And then, you know, she watched us when we was kids. And I showed her the same respect I showed my parents, because if you didn't sit down very good for a few days. So, you know, I knew to respect my elders, whether they were my mom and dad or my grandmother or my aunts or uncles. So, yeah, I knew not to lie to them.
Yeah. Yep.
How far away from your house were you when this incident happened? Were you up in the mountains then, or?
No. I'm trying to figure out the counties we had to go through. Mm-hmm. We went through Jackson County, then into Work County, so 2 counties away. It was about the area we were at is still active today, because I can go up there now and get responses. Mm-hmm. It's about 110 miles from my home.
Okay.
It's about an hour and 45 minutes, 2-hour drive.
Considerable, yeah, some distance for sure. So what after that? You just started looking into what Bigfoot was. Did you know then that was a Bigfoot that you saw, a Sasquatch, or what did you know?
I thought it was one of those swamp creatures that had came up from, out of Arkansas or something. That's what I thought. I was like, how in the world did one of them things get up here? And I started asking around, mentioning things to buddies of mine that have hunted in deeper in the Appalachian Mountains than I have. And one buddy of mine told me that him and his dad got run out of the woods by one a couple of years before that up in Greenbrier County. And, we kind of started running around together more, and we started looking into Bigfoot and started doing, finding books and stuff out of the library or talking to other people. And when we go places or talk to people that had an account or an encounter with a Bigfoot, and, a lot of it was folklore, is what we got told. And then we got in touch with some of the local Cherokee elders here in West Virginia and started talking to them. And the more they told us, the more they described these things and what had happened. Some of them were this way, some were that way. That was what we were, we figured out that we were dealing with the Bigfoot, and that they were calling them a Native American name. And, we started talking to other tribes around the area in Ohio and Pennsylvania and getting their names for them and just trying to gather information for 3 or 4 years. And then we started going out and looking around for them.
So what other things have you experienced then in your adventures out there and searching?
Well, we started finding Bigfoot. I ran into a gentleman that was in his late 60s, and he taught me a lot about Bigfoot. And we did investigations, and I started seeing Bigfoot with him around and doing calls. He taught me how to do their howls here in West Virginia. Because some of the Bigfoot in West Virginia, they have a very strange howl, and it's kind of everybody kind of laughs. We're known for having a Yahoo here in West Virginia, and they have a really strange way of announcing that they're there. And I've had Bigfoot that we were on an investigation one night after this gentleman passed, and out on an investigation ran into a clan of Yahoo, and they didn't like us being in the area and pushed trees down and almost pushed a tree down on top of me, threw rocks at me, ran me out of the woods. And then when I say run, they would walk and keep up with me running. They can cover 4 or 5 feet, in a step, and it takes me 3 steps to get, or 2 large steps to get that far. And they, it doesn't bother them to run up a hill and keep up with you. But they've ran me out of the woods here in West Virginia, near Summersville, West Virginia. And that was a night that I'll never forget.
You probably were more scared that night than you were the first one. I don't know.
No, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared until I got in the truck and back into the town of Summersville itself. Then I had to pull into the parking lot of a Pizza Hut and sit there and gather myself so I could drive home.
When the adrenaline wears off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice any smell any time when you were encountering these things? The famous...
Only once in 30 years have I ever smelt one. And I went into an area and was in there doing an investigation because there were reports of this rather large, big male Bigfoot that was in the area. They were saying he was over 10 foot. Well, they're right. He was over 10 foot. I got in there and was real quiet about it. And how I got past any of the other clan, I don't know. Or maybe we were on a collision course no matter what. And he got in there and I coughed or something. And this was still in the daylight. And he started growling at me, trying to get me to move and leave, and I didn't. And I started getting closer to him, and then I got a real bad, pungent combination of wet dog with a skunk that's been dead for a week out in a 90-degree heat, and rotten meat. And he was definitely telling me, it's time for you to leave. So, yeah, that's the only time I've ever smelled a Bigfoot. The rest of the times I've not had any problem.
I think they use it as a defense mechanism. I think we've talked about that before.
An early warning system.
Right.
Yeah, for us. It's not for anything else but us. Yeah.
Yeah, for us. Yep.
So you're still going out and doing investigations, Old Bear, and getting out there, or what?
Yeah. Me and my wife goes with me now. All of our kids are grown. We got grandkids, and the wife goes with me now, and I go to pretty benign places that I've known and found over the years when she goes. We're supposed to go up to Salt Fork State Park here at the end of the month and do an investigation with a Bigfoot group up there. And then we are going to go to Tennessee Labor Day weekend.
Cool.
Whereabouts in Tennessee?
Well, there's 3 channels that are in it. My channel on YouTube, and then 2 other channels. We decided to have what we call a Squatch out, just like a meet and greet thing.
Cool.
And we're going to do some squatching down there. Last year when we were down there, we had to leave early, and we had one of our children had medical issues last year, and we had to come home. And the night that we came home, they ran into some trouble down there. So,
really,
yeah, these Bigfoot made them leave, collapse their tents, throw everything in the car. Anything you grabbed that was yours, you threw it in the car, whatever way it was, and they left.
Wow.
And we decided to have a second year of going down there, and this year I'm not leaving. They're not going to run me off.
Mm-hmm. Do you think these things are dangerous?
I know they're dangerous.
Yeah.
I've had to deal with ones that don't have any problem eating you or me, and don't have a problem eating their own kind.
Wow.
What do you think? I mean, in general, Old Bear, what do you think Bigfoot is? Do you think it's what's your definition or opinion on this thing overall? Is it flesh and blood? Is it?
Yeah.
Do aliens drop them on the earth? Or I mean, what's going on with these things? What's your thoughts?
I've heard all the opinions there are to be heard out there over 30 years. My opinion is I have never seen one walk into any kind of a portal. I have never seen one that can talk to me telepathically. I have never seen any of them be able to do anything other than what their strength and their body size limits them to. They have unbelievable speed when they're going through the woods. When they're on 2 feet, if they drop to all fours, they're twice as fast. I've been charged. You know, Bigfoot have been within 20, 30 feet of me on multiple occasions, and they've never, you know, they've never telepathically told me to leave. They've always done something to make me believe they want me gone.
Mm-hmm.
Do they do
And,
those? Do they do those like gorillas? Do they do those? They call them fake charges or
Bluff
bluff
charge?
you know
charges?
where they run at you and stop real fast.
They do the same thing a bear will do.
A bear does the same thing.
Yeah. I lived in West Virginia pretty much all my life, except for 5 years I lived in Ohio, and I've been bluff charged in Pennsylvania before, and North Carolina. I forgot North Carolina.
Wow.
Where do you think the best squatching is? You're in the heart of it in West Virginia, but where do you like to go? What's your favorite spot or your state that you go to?
Right here in West Virginia.
Yeah.
You can find ones that are aggressive. You can find the benign ones. You can find the ones that's in the middle, or you can find the ones that just want to eat you.
I don't want to find those.
No.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun finding that kind.
I bet it is.
The hungry ones, you mean? Why do you think?
No, they're not hungry. They just those are the ones that's got the teeth sticking out. You know, the long incisors, and those are the ones that think it's fun to hunt humans.
Why do you think Bigfoot has not been proven?
Well, my personal opinion is the U.S. government knows they're real, probably has multiple specimens of them, and probably have killed quite a few that have harmed human beings. And if you think about it, it's all based on money. The government is not going to say these things are out there. For the simple fact is look at all the tax money they're going to lose, how many lawsuits they're going to be in.
Sure.
And it's money and power. That's it. Money is power in today's society. So
yeah, it's sad, honestly.
It is.
But yeah, I think that too. And if we were talking about it on another show, that if these things are pronounced as being real, then it's going to screw up a lot of things, including religion and history and everything else, I think. So there's more than one reason why I think they cover it up for sure. But the thing about it is, the thing that gets me is that if these things are dangerous and doing things to people, killing, eating, whatever, then I think that it's time that someone says, hey, look, for people's protection, but
people deserve to know.
To find out that a person dies because of a Bigfoot and they send in an army of guys to kill this thing and take it out. Okay, and hide the body in the Smithsonian basement or wherever they keep them.
they just destroy them nowadays, I would say.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever know? You think the science will ever claim that Bigfoot are real?
Well, the science will have to, because you got to look at it this way, guys. I've taken hairs that have had the roots, all that stuff, found bones from graves that are 9 foot long and 5 foot across, and sent them in to different scientists around, in the U.S. But where did most of these scientists get paid? They get grants to do research. You take away a $500,000 grant, how much of that goes in that scientist's pocket?
Right.
Never thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
If the government says you don't talk, you don't talk.
I've always said that scientists will say whatever the guy that's writing the check tells them to say.
Right. And that's how it works.
I think what it's going to take is somebody like you, Old Bear, to go out there and just put one down and throw it in the back of a whatever. And but even then, as soon as they knew you had it, you're getting a visit.
Yeah, they're coming for you.
Right. Yeah. The only problem with that idea is, everybody don't understand that these things are not alone. They're never alone when they're in the woods.
Right.
There's an alpha male. Now, he'll go alone in the woods, but usually there's, a couple of beta males that are part of the clan that follow closely behind to watch over him. And when a beta male goes out for a hunt, that day that I was down there, I only saw the one. But where was the other ones that were on the hunt with it? I mean, if you're chasing down three deer can run for a long ways. And one of them, one Bigfoot's going to get tired. Where was he pushing them deer to?
Right.
Was he pushing it into another Bigfoot? Or were the other Bigfoot triangulating ahead of these deer and still within, if it would have screamed right there or done a call or something while it was standing right there, how many would I have had on top of me if I'd have shot that one?
Yeah.
So,
or maybe he knew they were far enough away, and that's why he backed off.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the fact that he stopped chasing these deer and let them go for a little bit and checked you out kind of tells me that, if he was serious about it, he would have kept going after these things and not paid attention to you one bit. May not even seen you. I don't know. But yeah, there had to been others out there waiting. He was probably pushing these things, something like that, or whatever.
Well,
so,
I've been deer hunting since I was 8 years old. Human beings do deer drives. I mean, we get standers to go out here and stand, and they got their rifles, and 2 or 3 guys go walking through the woods, slowly push the deer to the standers, and that way they can pick out the deer that they wish to harvest, and, if it's a buck or a doe or whatever. And then, those deer were running. So that tells me it was close to the end of the, where he was pushing them to. So, because he was pushing hard, he was pushing them because they were going to get outside of where he was wanting them to go. And so, yeah, there. I feel that there was at least one other one there, but even if I'd have shot that one shot it in the head, whatever, where was the other one going to come from? And where would I, how many shots was I going to have to take to kill that thing?
Right.
Well,
so,
it would have taken some time maybe to track where its buddy was, but it would have heard the shot and came that way possibly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, you're not going to shoot one and drag it out of there. By the time you get...
If you didn't drop it in one shot, he's screaming anyway and calling the rest of them in.
You'd almost have to have like a chainsaw on you to take a body part or two and get the hell out of there as soon as you shot the damn thing. Be like, okay, I got the head, I'm out of here. And then you'd be lucky to make it out alive then too, most likely.
Well, from where I was at, I was a mile back out the road we came in on. Even if I would have shot it, cut its head off, got back to the truck, we still had to get out of there. So how many of them would have showed up at the road?
Yeah.
Right.
Pushed a tree across the road.
Yeah, I think you made the right decision.
I've heard that, speaking of how they chase deer, I've heard that they'll actually move trees in certain positions to where it kind of channels or funnels the deer through a path, and they wait on the end of the path or in the path to jump out. But they'll make trees in on game trails that kind of diverts these things away and toward them, bending them over a certain way so the deer have to go like on the right side or the left side, but they have to kind of go in that direction to get anywhere, and they'll use that as a technique too, which is crazy. But you see these trees bent over in certain directions, and you wonder why they're like that.
If you think about it, how many guys go out and get in a tree stand every fall, and they trim shooting lanes into the trails, and then take the brush and lay it down on a trail so it pulls the deer closer.
Sure. Trappers do the same thing.
They do the same thing that we do.
Right. Were you ever able to get any pictures of these guys when you're out there? Or you think Do you ever take a camera with you, or do you just don't even mess with it for whatever reason?
I gave up on the camera for the simple reason is every time I got a good picture, oh, that's a person in a suit.
Yeah.
That's a costume.
That's the first thing.
That's all I heard for 20 years.
So you just take it in for yourself and enjoy it, right?
I just go out now and I'll do I'll give a howl, and then I'll get my wife to do a couple of whoops, and they'll come in if they want to, and if they don't want to, then we just chalk it up as a good time for me and my wife to be out together. So that's
Right.
the way we look at it now.
Nice day in the woods.
Yeah. I told Brian, I said, I used to spend some time in the hills of West Virginia, and really beautiful stuff, and definitely the habitat to sustain a Bigfoot creature for sure.
Right.
Someday I'm going to get back out there. Maybe me and Brian can do an excursion and meet up with you sometime, and you can take us some good spots out there.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we want to get out to West Virginia because we've been hearing.
Well, let me know.
A lot of stuff.
We can take you up there to Summersville.
And it's funny because you called it a booger when we started the program, so that's what they call them down there. We did an episode with a guy at West Virginia encounter, and he called it the same thing, the wood booger. So, but Old Bear, we appreciate you coming on and talking to us, man, and telling us your stories, man. It means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time.
It was my pleasure to come.
Right
Thank you for asking.
We're going to check out your YouTube and your Facebook and all that stuff.
I'd like to have you back on.
Yeah, eventually get you back on for some more stuff.
Talk about some more.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks again, and you take care.
We are following your YouTube, so we're going to check that out. And good luck to you out there in the woods. You be safe when you're out there.
Yeah, definitely. Don't get too crazy.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too.
See ya. Yep. Wow, that was amazing. That guy had a gun pointed at that thing.
Yep.
Hammerback.
Taking one. Yeah.
What would you have done?
Crazy.
Would you have shot that thing, man?
Honest to God, I don't know. I guess it depends on what the next step would have been. If it would have been across that creek, yes, I probably would have pulled the trigger.
Yeah. Me too.
It's him or me.
Me too. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You don't know what you're going to do in that
so
situation.
You never know until you're in that situation.
Especially at, what was he, 16 years old?
Yeah. I'd have been too busy filling my drawers.
I would have been too. Oh my gosh. Anyway, great show. Thanks for hanging out with me again.
And he was fun, man.
He was. He's a good guy.
We need to seriously think about that camping invitation we got.
For sure. Definitely. For sure. We will. Yes, for sure. Thanks again, you guys, for listening, as always. And we'd love to have you be a guest on the show if you've had an encounter. So go ahead and email us, as always, at info@cryptidcreatures.co, or go on our Facebook page, click our link, as we said before. Go to our pod page and fill out the calendar. Right, Brian?
That's right.
Fill
out the contact, click the contact tab, fill all that out, and then we'll get back to you, and we'll discuss.
Yep. And we thank you guys for listening. We're still growing, as always.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing.
We've got a show coming up.
We do in November 20th and 2021. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Lexington, Kentucky.
CryptidCon. The guys from Finding Bigfoot are going to be there.
I know. I'm excited about that.
Maybe hopefully we can talk to
Cliff.
Yes.
Awesome.
And Bobo. All of them,
Bobo.
for all I care.
Yeah. Actually, all of them would be great.
So we're going to have a booth set up and some mics set up, and you guys are welcome to come over and say hello and sit down and talk to us a little bit. And if you haven't had an encounter, but you want to talk about Bigfoot, we're willing to sit down with you guys and
we're always willing
and
to
record
talk
for the show. So that's what we're planning on doing. So
if you guys are going to CryptidCon, stop by, man.
Definitely.
Introduce yourselves, and we'll have a good time.
Yep, for sure. And as always, Brian, thanks for hanging out with me, man. It's been a great show.
As always, it's a great time.
Right on, man. All right.
We have been having some really great guests. So
for sure.
Let's keep this show rolling.
And looking forward to many more.
Yep, right on.
All right. We'll talk to you next time, man.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.